We'll start talking about what we all came for today, how to be booked and busy. This is your PR playbook. As Stephanie's mentioned, feel free to jump in and ask questions, jump into the chat. I'd love to know who's here, where you're from, maybe what you do, or what maybe some of your struggles are with PR at the moment. If you end up watching this after the recording, feel free to leave a comment on our YouTube and just let me know wherever you're at any point in your journey. We have different solutions for you, whether it's a consultation or working full-time together. Go ahead and let me know. So we'll just jump right into it. So my name is Tiff. I am a award-winning PR strategist. I'm a brand consultant. I'm also a creator, and I'm the founder of Brand Curators. We are a PR and brand management agency helping influential people build businesses, amplify their brand, and also monetize their brand. So I work with everybody from what I call creatorpreneurs, the intersection of entrepreneurs and creators, to working with organizations like nonprofits and businesses and helping them figure out how to reach their audiences and get their story out there. I have had a lot of success with branding myself super well with, using all these different tools. And so I'm here to pretty much spill the tea on everything that we've done to be successful that I then relay to my clients and also will relay to you. So let's talk about being booked and busy without burnout. I want to be super clear that part of the conversation that I have is about getting your name out there, but also making sure that we're not getting caught up in a toxic cycle of just wanting to go, go, go. What you'll walk away with today is just how to pitch yourself with confidence, what makes a story media worthy, how to get organic press opportunities, and building lasting media relationships. We'll also talk about kind of planning ahead on getting that visibility. So a lot of people will kind of reach out to me and ask what tells you that you're ready for PR? At what stage am I ready for PR? It's a question I get often. It's a question I'm always happy to answer because maybe you're not ready for PR and you can ask yourself a few questions to figure that out. A lot of times you might be ready if you're just able to get a story together, get a narrative together. And most of the time that story is something that might need to be heard. It might be able to resonate with other people. It might be timely. And so to just start with some basic clarity, you really want to ask yourself, do I have the foundations? You need to have a bio and a headshot of some sort. It doesn't have to be perfect, but those are must-haves for just being ready for that visibility. The importance of that PR readiness, I cannot emphasize enough. You might be wanting to apply for awards, speaking gigs, media interviews, partnerships. And so you need to make sure that you're ready for that impact. If you're not ready for that impact, you don't have a website ready to go, you don't have any social handles secured, you really just have an idea, but you don't have anywhere for someone to take action, then I would say you're not ready. But a lot of times folks come to me, they think they're not ready, but they are more than ready, having all of these things. Maybe you did some sort of brand photo shoot and you got some headshots. You have some messaging about your organization or what you're trying to do, and that will take you a long way. We have something to work with, and just a clear vision for yourself is important to note. But one thing that is a pro tip that I want to share is always make sure that you have these assets in a folder with shareable links. So with my clients, I always make sure that we have a shareable folder available, has their essentially what we call a media kit. You could have a PDF or a image or some sort of document that's a quick hitting media kit, but you also just want to make sure that you have a link that is essentially your media kit. Put your readily available media kit in this link, but also just make sure you have the files of your photos available. A document, usually a Google Doc, will have their bio sheet for all of our clients, and we'll also make sure that all of the social media handles and websites associated with that client are right there. You want to make sure things are easy for press to access. If things aren't easy, not only just for media, but for your potential clients and potential collaborators, people will move on. So that's a big reason why you want your story to be right front and center and accessible. I like to also note that PR is a long game. The difference between PR and marketing is that marketing is something that can, you can kind of have some quick wins. It's more about sales. It's more about you telling people that you're amazing, whereas PR is more about somebody else telling people that you're amazing. And so how that works is you want to make sure that you're building relationships and that you're planning ahead. Booked and busy does not happen overnight. It is something that you need to be strategic about and intentional about. Most PR wins can take anything from 3 to 6 months to land. I've done this research and I've really crunched the numbers for our agency to take a look at the fact that we might have sent some pitches out, back in April, and some of them came to fruition around this time, maybe June or early July. And that's sometimes the life cycle of how long it takes to go from idea to pitch to maybe a few follow-ups, which are important, and we'll get into that. You definitely want to be following up, to then, the reporter maybe interviewing you and asking some more questions or working on, their feature, and then it actually being published. One way to kind of get a sense of what these timelines are looking at some publications that you really want to target and looking at their editorial calendars. If you go to a Forbes or Fast Company or Better Home and Gardens, just to name a few outlets, you can see on their website that they typically have a editorial calendar for the year. And that's where you can kind of see that for some of these, for example, magazines, they're planning their issues months in advance. And there's some things that happen every year that you kind of know, like, for example, the holiday season, or spring happening, or summer stories. A lot of these things are seasonal. A lot of these things kind of depend on what's happening in the world. And so that's why it's important to kind of try to map out these moments as best as you can, so that you can try to get that coverage. Another example about these long lead times can be, for example, holiday gift guides. Sometimes I have folks that come to me in October, November, and they're saying, hey, I really want to get in some holiday gift guides. And I say, hey, we're going to do what we can, but we don't have as much lead time as we really need. And I always try to keep that transparency, because there are a lot of people out here that'll take your money and say, all right, we'll do it. And they'll kind of try to find a quick fix. But to do this correctly, to do this in accordance to how, the PR in journalism relationship works, you really want to start with maybe like an August, I would say July, August, lead time for holiday gift guides. So right now people are working on holiday gift guides. And one tip that I want to share about like how to actually plan this for yourself, your industry, your business, or your ventures, is to just take a look at this year. Start this year. I remember when I first started to put together this speaking engagement calendar for our agency, I did a lot of the grunt work that year. I'll say this was maybe like 2023. As events were going on, I would keep notes. I would say, oh, I would love my clients to be there next year. I wouldn't stress about it, but I would just say next year I'm going to be ready. And by taking a look at all those key moments right now, look from January to July and think about places that you wanted to be or that you'd want to be a part of, and keep note. And by the second half of the year, they'll have the dates up for submissions to speak at that event or be a part of that event. And so you want to kind of map things out. So use this time to kind of note those milestones, events, brand launches, and create your own visibility calendar. Oh, one more tip I have, especially if you want to do more speaking, is to set Google Alerts. I have Google Alerts for everything. Google Alerts for, my business name, my clients' names, but you could also set Google Alerts for, calls for speakers or certain conferences and industry events. For example, I work heavily in the creator economy, so I could set an alert that says creator economy conference or creator economy event or things like that, so that I'm kind of staying in the loop when things hit the internet. Okay, so let's talk about what makes a story media worthy. So strong storytelling builds lasting influence. You want to make it timely, you want to make it grounded, you want to make it connected to something bigger. So it can't just be about you. You need to ask these questions. Why now? What is happening in the world that you can tie this back to? What is what is something that is being talked about? What is something that's in the news cycle already? Whenever we create narratives that kind of tie into the news cycle, we call that newsjacking. There might be opportunities to, speak on current events, especially if you want to be seen as an authority in your industry, a thought leader. You might be able to say, oh, I have commentary on that. I'm either like a doctor who can speak on, this pandemic that's happening, or, I am actually a coach or a trainer who can speak on, this WNBA season and the rise of these injuries. So think about how you can kind of tie your story into something wider. Why does this matter to their audience? You don't want to be selfish when it comes to, sharing your story. Even though it's all about you, you want to provide value. You want to think about, like, why would audiences need to know about this right now? What is this doing? Is this inspiring folks to make change, to take action? And then also think about, again, how this aligns with the current trends, cycles, conversations, even if it's not in the immediate media, but maybe something happening in pop culture, entertainment, something that's just kind of discourse online that is becoming very popular. There might be ways to be able to tie your story in and make people care, because you're not really being self-centered. You're finding a way to connect with others. So, elements of a strong pitch. We're going to tie in a little bit of what we just talked about and kind of give some corrections. So, you want to be brief. Brevity is your best friend. When you are sending out a pitch to the media, telling them about yourself, what you're doing, your product, your company, your launch, you want to make sure you're not sending them paragraphs on paragraphs. The truth is, journalists aren't reading this. They have so many pitches a day. I follow a lot of Substacks that writers have and journalists have, which is another tip right there if you want to kind of be more in the know with what journalists are looking at. And they often say that they are getting hundreds of pitches a day. So how are you going to stand out when they're getting hundreds of pitches? You want to be brief. You want to make sure your subject line is direct and short. This is not a place to get really, really fancy and creative in your subject line. You want to get creative in the sense of figuring out how you can summarize everything in that email in, I would say, 7 to 9 words. That is a sweet spot. If you can get that down as much as possible and be direct, expert quote on this thing, something specific so they know what they're reading, because a lot of times they might get emails with subject lines and they don't really understand, or it's confusing, or like it was so creative that now they kind of lost the plot. A lot of times journalists are saying they delete that. Again, with the brevity in the email, you want to make sure that you have your ask up top in your pitch. I always make sure that in like the first graph, I am putting my ask. Would you like to speak to this person on this topic? And everything else is supporting what I'm saying in the beginning of that pitch. I always put line breaks. I might put bullet points. Just think about how you consume content. When you read an essay, you're not really reading it, right? So just think about somebody getting that pitch in the middle of their day, very busy. And if it's something that hits, has some supporting links, no attachments. You really want to try to avoid sending attachments. It could clog up inboxes, and that's how you know your email is going to get deleted. So more don'ts. Don't reach. Don't try to tie something in that just doesn't go. Journalists really hate that. You really want to match their beat. So if they write about, health and wellness, women's health and wellness, don't try to like make some connection that's not really there and kind of twist a story to make it sound, like it might be something they write about. It's just kind of straight up like disrespectful. Journalists, writers, editors, they'll just kind of feel like, well, you don't really understand me. You clearly aren't paying attention to what I cover, what I report on. So don't do that. And also, again, think about the context of your pitch being more than just you. Tie it into larger stories or trends. Okay, so let's talk about how to get booked. So pitch yourself, shoot your shot. Don't be afraid to do so. Some ways you can do this: identify your target media and your ideal platforms. Maybe you're interested in being on more podcasts. I really encourage podcast press tours, because podcasts are an opportunity for you to tell your story in depth and to really share and have people hear the sincerity in your voice and you to really be able to tell your story. And we can listen to podcasts on the go. So there's a lot of ways that people like to consume. So if your target audience or the people you're trying to reach can really hear you talk to this in depth, go for it. I always recommend this for people who are subject matter experts who might have material that maybe doesn't translate as well in just some quotes. But also think about other publications. Like I mentioned, check out the writers at these publications, follow them, see what they're talking about. And newsletters are also a really fantastic way to get in front of audiences. Some people have newsletters with, tens of thousands of subscribers, and it might be more effective than even traditional media. You can also use free tools. I'll get into this in the next slide, but there's a ton of free tools out there. You've probably heard about a few of these, but I'll break them down further. You can also, like I mentioned previously, follow journalists. Threads is where I'm seeing a lot of journalists go. Twitter used to be kind of the spot back in the day where you would follow journalists, and they used a hashtag called journal request. And so now I'm seeing Threads is kind of the place, and also LinkedIn. I've had clients who have seen different opportunities. I've seen, people tag other people. I've been tagged in different posts that journalists have written where they said, hey, I need someone who can speak on, creator economy trends or this thing happening in PR. And you'll see that and you'll go ahead and shoot your shot. You'll send a DM, you'll follow up with them. And what I'm about to get into in the next slide kind of relates to this as well. You want to make sure that you are getting straight to the point. You are answering their question. You are not putting a lot of fluff, and that you're quick with it. And last but not least, of course, I have to say, think about hiring a reputable publicist or PR agency. I'm a big fan of trying, free resources and just, telling people to kind of figure out themselves what they can do to build their brand and get their personal brand out there more. But then you come to a point where, you're gaining momentum, and it's really smart to hire a, PR expert or agency to be able to support those goals and really take you to another level. Okay, so let me share some free tools. Maybe you're not ready to hire the agency. Maybe you want to try to do a little bit yourself. Good luck. And I say that because it's going to be something that you have to be intentional about. Again, PR is not a long game, so you really want to carve out time for this. But there are free tools, and if you really spend some time with them, you can get placements. So there's Quoted, there's Featured, and there's Harrow. I feel like a lot of people talk about Harrow. You might have heard about it. Quoted is becoming more and more popular. Featured might have acquired Harrow. There's something there that's connected, but these are ones that I get emails from constantly. I do pay for the premium Quoted. Quoted is something that you can get on for free, but you can only, I think, respond to about I want to say it's like a handful, maybe 3 press inquiries a month, I want to say. Featured has something similar where you can send some free responses to media, but it's limited. But both of those have plans that you can kind of like level up and get unlimited pitches. Harrow is something that is a resource. It's Help a Reporter Out. This is also a source request platform where you're getting emails throughout the day from different sources from different journalists who are seeking sources for their stories. The great thing and the commonality about all 3 of these, it's that they are all telling you exactly what you need. So rather than sending cold pitches and just hoping that they would cover you, you're getting, journalists and writers who are saying, I want to talk to this type of person, this type of expert, somebody with this experience for this story. So then you're able to really kind of jump on things that work for you. You can have it tailored to certain hashtags. You can skim them and look for keywords and send submissions in. But this is a really great tool. The biggest thing is be quick with it. So there might be deadlines. For example, Quoted might say, there might be a journalist who says, hey, I'm looking to talk to tech experts on this tech story. I need all the responses in by Monday at 9 a.m. And today is Thursday at the time of this recording. I would really shoot to, be one of the first people to send them a quote, to be honest. So don't overthink it. Just send your raw thoughts. Do not get caught up sending a super AI packaged response, Journalists really don't like that. There's some issues with integrity, and they can kind of get some backlash for publishing something that's not completely your own thoughts. So just be wary. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be overly polished. Really send your raw thoughts and try to send as many as possible. It's kind of a numbers game, and it's a great way to be able to get some extra press. So, positioning yourself as the expert, you want to be the go-to name in your niche. And so think about how repetition builds recognition. Talk about your expertise as often as possible across your platforms. Be able to leverage moments that you've had where you've done webinars, speaking engagements, have gotten press. And I always say, be your own muse. What that means to me is really position yourself, use your own receipts, share articles that you've been featured in or webinars that you've led, and use that to kind of get to the next level and secure more opportunities. One actionable way you can do this is, let's say you recently spoke on a panel and you want to speak on more panels. Use that leverage, use that link. If you have a recording, if you have, maybe a recap of the event on your own website, make a moment out of what you do. You need to celebrate yourself more than anybody else is going to celebrate you, right? So if you're making it a moment, people will see it as a moment. We'll send out newsletters after we did something, and maybe write a press release for our own website, and do recap content on our socials. And now that is something that you can use as a resource to pitch the next and show them, the capital, show them the social proof that you are somebody who is worthy of, being involved in their next project. So this is a big one. PR is all about relationship building. I would say that like 80% of my job is simply maintaining and building on relationships. Most of the success we've had is because we've kept in touch with different writers, journalists, editors, partners, just other stakeholders, even if they're not traditional media, but folks that we've elevated along the way and then in turn want to elevate us. And so a couple tips: always send thank you notes. Every time a reporter covers one of our clients or our company, we're always just saying thank you, just showing some gratitude for taking the time to do that. We also like to just like follow up with journalists who've covered us in the past, just to see like what are you working on? Do you need any sources? Do you need any experts? Can I amplify anything for you? That type of stuff. Also, we check in quarterly. There might be new angles. There might be something that could be a follow-up to a story that they've written before or adjacent. So you just want to make sure that it isn't just transactional. You're actually also providing value for them, because journalists, they're not just there to write about you. To be honest, they're not just there to like get your story out. They have a responsibility to their audience. So you want to make sure that you're giving them something to work with as well. And an example I put here is, if you have merch or you have gifts and things like that around the holidays, you might want to think about, who in your network, not just journalists. And this isn't just something to be transactional. Again, it's just alignment. If there's people you've worked with throughout the year, think about how you can send them, packages or gifts or something like that, or even a holiday card. It goes a really long way. Another thing that kind of is rare these days, just picking up the phone or setting up a coffee chat. That goes a super long way. And it's just how you continue to like, just know what's going on with that person. And you don't want to be the person who's just coming around and, when you need something. So consider that. So we talked at the very beginning about how, being booked and busy is great. But it's really not the flex. It's really not the flex that we think it is. Being booked and busy isn't the goal. If you are drained, you need to build in recovery time, just like launch cycles. So create visibility that supports your piece, not just your profile. For example, we just got off of this, 3-month conference tour, and there was a lot of things in between. Every month this quarter, I had a webinar. I was traveling for events. And it was really great for visibility. You can have these seasons where you're doing a lot and making sure that you're leveraging it, getting good content from it, recapping it, sharing it with your audience. And you can use that for months to come. So never feel like you have to just move on from these moments. Find ways to keep reintroducing them so that you could have a period of rest. So this could be, it's summertime. This can be a period to just kind of recover and then plan for another time where you maybe want to kind of batch a few appearances, press opportunities, podcast run, all in a section that you feel comfortable with, maybe a course of a couple months. So we're almost at the end of our discussion, but it wouldn't be the end of my PR chat without talking about the difference between organic PR and pay to play. If you're paying for PR coverage, it's an ad. I'm going to say that again. If you're paying for PR coverage, it is an ad. Organic media is earned media, and paid media is paid. The difference is that, organic opportunities come from the alignment. There's journalists who are writing about things, informing their audiences about certain topics. You come in at a good time, you can provide value to the story or some expertise, and that's something that naturally will kind of fit into that narrative. You get an earned placement. Or a speaking opportunity, you have some really timely topics. There's a lot going on in your industry that are related to those topics. Let's get you in to speak. And it's relevant. It's based on trust, relationships, and relevance. But then there's pay to play. Pay to play is definitely on the rise. It's no shade if you decide that you want to go to pay to play route. Sometimes there's a need for it. But just remember that it's not just about building credit, it's about building credibility, not just clout. And I do want to provide some context as to why pay to play is on the rise. The media industry has changed dramatically. We all know that journalism has shifted so much with the rise of AI and just layoffs and companies folding and all of that good stuff. So, well, not so good stuff. And so what's happening is a lot of journalists are becoming freelance. They're trying to think of ways to monetize. A lot of media companies are just kind of focused on their business model to stay around. And so a lot of these opportunities come from folks charging and saying, I'll write an article about you for this much, but that is not typical. I'm just here to say that that's not the norm. And I really encourage folks to not buy into pay to play if you can. There are times where things are ads and you have to treat it like an ad, and maybe you have a marketing budget and you can kind of chalk it up to this is part of the marketing budget. And we've done that in some senses. But when it comes to like editorial articles, you really want to have true, real articles out there about you. A lot of people can tell when they're pay to play. So just to kind of wrap things up with a bow on the PR discussion, the best PR strategy is one that feels aligned and sustainable. You do not need a blue check. You do not need 1 million followers to be seen. You need intention, strategy, visibility that matches your purpose. Jumped ahead a little bit. And you want to start with your foundation. So pitch smart, build real relationships, plan ahead. Everyone can walk away from this just reviewing your assets, thinking about, do I have a bio? Do I have headshots? Do I have calls to action? Are my links all on my social handles? Is it very clear what I do and who I am? If the media finds me, like let's say you get picked up in an article, do you have old pictures on your profiles? Something that you would want to be then shared on the Washington Post? If not, then you need to kind of audit your brand, and we have some tools for that. Then map out your visibility goals. Maybe you're like, I am not a speaker, I do not want to do podcasts, but I do want to dedicate myself to maybe writing more op-eds. I like to write, I want to contribute. Those are great ways to also get in front of other audiences. It's huge to be able to use other people's audiences where you can. That way you're kind of outside of your own social bubble. You can beat these algorithms where you're not really reaching people and find ways to be able to connect with aligned organizations, and then apply what you learned. So I have a few resources for you. I have a brand audit checklist. So if you want to take a look at your brand closer, I have something for you, and we will share that in the comments. It's also on our website, brandcurators.co/resources. I have a podcast, Main Character Energy, with Tiff Knighten. I do a lot of discussions there, and we talk about brand building, personal branding. If you want to talk more about social media or hear more about social media strategies and how some really, really impactful creators and entrepreneurs are doing it, that's the place for you. And then you can also book an introduction call with me. So we have our website, brandcurators.co. You can click contact and you can set up a call with me directly. One more resource for you guys before I go. I wanted to tell you about the Novo partnership that I'm doing right now. It's been really amazing working with Novo, and I have been using Novo for a couple years now for my business checking account. Before I used Novo, I didn't have a proper business checking account. And when I decided that I was gonna stop having a freelance mindset and have more of a business, I'm building an agency mindset in I think year 2 of my business, I decided to open Novo and stop just having a second checking account on my personal account. And so the thing about Novo, there's no monthly fees, there's invoicing tools. It's a little bit like having QuickBooks inside your banking account as well. I can kind of see money in, money out, year over year. And it's been really great for just being able to budget and integrate with all of my other tools. It is good for customizing invoices, so you have that feature on there. So if you're somebody like me who wants to kind of downsize on the tools you use, it is more of an all-in-one solution. And if you're someone also like me who likes to try different platforms and maybe like some things about some platforms better than others, it does connect to a wide variety of different platforms that you may already use. And you can check it out by clicking on my QR code and seeing what it's about. There's no fee to sign up, and you don't have to have a certain amount in the account. So even if you sign up just to play around and check it out, totally worth it. And one of my favorite things about using Novo for our business is the Novo Reserves. This has helped me budget more than anything else. I'm big on just finding something that works and sticking with it. And right here, I realized with Novo that if I'm able to categorize my money in certain buckets, it makes me better. It makes me just more on top of my finances. As you can see in the screenshot, there's an area for taxes, expenses. You can have up to 20 different reserves. So I have one for team salaries. I have one for paying myself. And it took me a minute, when I first started my business, to really actually pay myself. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but once I decided to say, I'm going to pay myself properly, we are kind of moving in a new direction, I was able to make a reserve, and I have a percentage of all of my income that just goes over there. Same thing with taxes. You can set it to have 30% of all of your income go directly to that tax bucket, and you don't touch it. And so when tax time comes, or when you're paying quarterly taxes, it's just right there. And it's amazing. And you don't have to set it up so it's just percentages come in. It's really easy to do that, but you could also just set it up and it can just sit there, and it's just whatever you decide to put in there, kind of like a savings account. So those are a few of my favorite tools, resources. I know I've said a lot. I can talk about PR all day, to be honest, but I do want to kind of open it up now. I want to hear what you guys have questions about, and I'd love to have you connect with me. You can see my QR code here. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn and send me a DM. Check out our website to learn more about our services if you are ready to kind of take that next step in PR. And feel free to send me an email if you prefer that too. So lots of ways to get in touch, but I cannot wait to hear from you, and thank you for having me.